American River International is an international trade consulting firm. And we service the international trade community, both importers and exporters, with compliance management, full logistics facilitation on the how to, how not to stay in line with customs regulations and/or not to, again, cross that line. As a backdrop to our consulting services, we offer several other services. We're a full-fledged customs broker, a full-fledged international logistics freight forwarder. We own our own school called the World Academy, and we provide education and training on a host of different topics, again, encompassing the entire global supply chain. We were established in 1982, and the group of companies also, one of the additional services is domestic delivery of transportation services as well. So again, end to end. Many people ask me, who are your competitors? What one company does all the things that you do? And I say there is no one company that does all the services that we offer. There are companies who may do freight forwarding, and there are some companies who do brokerage, but there's not one inclusive organization that offers consulting, education and training, brokerage, freight forwarding, and domestic transportation. Over the last decade, it would have to be the elevation of regulatory compliance enforcement. The government agencies are really basically imposing additional rules and regulations on freight forwarders and on brokers and on the international trade community, such as importers and U.S. principal parties of interest. And that increased regulatory enforcement has resulted in increased fines and penalties to the trade community. So it created a niche industry for consulting, for the facilitation of compliance controls associated with the freight forwarding industry and associated with the brokerage industry. So I think as companies started to realize that there was this financial risk that they didn't plan for, that they needed to elevate the level of their education and training, they needed to elevate the level of their compliance, regulatory controls. So not just standard operating procedures, but the facilitation and evidence of implementation of those controls basically changed the industry, where service providers need to know more, need to be more informed, and need to really demonstrate that we are truly experts in the field. And that's what differentiates successful service providers versus the run-of-the-mill. Yeah, there's a mixture. There are some senior management representatives. CEOs and CFOs are very interested in the financial risk to their organizations. So either they learn through bad experiences, such as the receipt of a fine or a penalty. They learn from best practices. There are many companies who want to benchmark and figure out how are their competitors managing this newfound risk due to the regulatory increase. So they are doing things like performing pre-audits. They're doing things like performing facilities reviews. And they're looking at how do they manage their financial risk, because there are rules and regulations that were introduced to us from the Sarbanes-Oxley incident, right? SOX standards came out and they addressed 5 core elements of every public company. Well, private companies are learning from public companies. There's this should have known rule that says all the way up to the top, a senior management can't say that they weren't aware of the regulatory and/or financial risk imposed to that organization simply because they were divorced or removed from the supply chain. Supply chain used to be considered to be a shipping and receiving function. But when you can get a penalty of $100,000 per transaction for failure to keep adequate records in each transaction filed over the last 5 years, you get the attention of the CFO and the CEO. Which is one of the reasons why, as consultants, we always request that when we have an opening conference and a closing conference, that a member of the senior management team be there to hear, whether it's a 15-minute FaceTime, a summary of what we found as a discovery as a consultant, so that they can understand, again, what the financial risks are to their specific company. So normally the learning curve goes either through a receipt of either a customs or a regulatory BIS action or a proactive effort of an internal compliance review. Well, as a consultant, it created the supply and demand. There was a need as a demand for education and training. So one of the things that we did was we implemented more classes to our training institution. The World Academy offers classes in Incoterms management, import, export compliance, international trade, logistics decisions, CTPAT, education and training, annual security risk assessments. So it's created a platform for us to put forth a supply of the demand, the regulatory requirement called informed compliance, which is a legal responsibility of every trade participant, not only to be aware, but to go out and educate themselves on the formal rules and regulations that are in place. And these rules change, and informed compliance is not a one and done issue. It wasn't implemented in 1993 and the government forgot about it. It's an annual responsibility. So we have a training institution called the World Academy, again, that is here to help companies for recurrent training in a vast, group of ideas and topics specific to their daily responsibilities. So that's been one. We've elevated our internal controls of our own operating staff, and we continue to offer informed compliance to our own group. We right now have a 50% of our workforce that is licensed customs brokers, which is unheard of in the brokerage industry. Our facilitation and our operations team, we average almost 20 years of operational experience in our logistics operations group, right? So we've taken compliance, the need to manage compliance, to a level where we don't have just entry-level personnel. And that really bodes well when someone calls up on the phone and they speak to someone in my forwarding operation, and they're speaking to someone who knows more about logistics than they do. You won't be able to retain a customer if the customer calls you and the customer knows more than their service provider. So we have that, and the years of experience complements our service as well. Well, technology, it's like a tool in a toolbox, right? You have skilled craftsmen, who can build a home, but, they're only as good as the tools that they have in that toolbox, right? If they don't have good tools, then it's going to take them longer to do their work. So automation is convenient. Automation gives us the opportunity to handle tasks in a much more efficient manner. So there are certain tools that we've used in this compliance effort in the facilitation of the daily practices that help us from a convenience standpoint serve as a good tool in the execution and completion of our task as a service provider. So we're here, we've been a Descartes member for the past 17 years. When we first started our brokerage operation, which was 17 years ago, because we were a forwarder and a consultant since 1982. But in 2000, when we opened up our brokerage operation, we took on the legacy company of Editrade, which was then acquired by Oceanwide, which was acquired by Descartes in that historical. But we've been a part of the Descartes family for 17 years. And there are additional services that we now use, the OneView system that we use secondary screening, utilizing the MK denial process to our compliant one, which is the primary screening that we have. But we utilize technology to, again, as a tool in our efforts to elevate compliance management on a day-to-day basis. I've been in the industry for 34 years, and I used to manage a brokerage operation, and it was a proprietary system that they had. And so I've had experience dealing with other software providers and dealing with proprietary systems. But Descartes' commitment to customer service, their user-friendly format from the brokerage side, one of the things why I initially chose the brokerage package was that it was user-friendly. It was not 10 screens to process an entry, right? They consolidated it to a minimum number of screens, and it made sense. And as we grew as a brokerage operation, so did the Descartes family, and it continues to grow. Now, as new and technology continues to advance, the government continues to offer new programs such as ACE, right? There are implementation stages and things, but the commitment that I feel from the Descartes family, again, as a partner in the success of American River, is that we continue to grow, and we'll be part of that family while we continue to receive that same commitment. You can't select a freight forwarder or broker based simply on your entry fees or simply on your transaction fees. If you're shopping around for the lowest rate, you're going to get the lowest service. The success of any importer, if I were a CEO of an importer of record or an exporter, I'd seek the services of a company who truly were able to give me value-added services, who had compliance on the platform of their operational level, who had a response of 24, 7 days a week, because the supply chain is 24, 7 days a week, that didn't go home at 5 o'clock, that used technology to, again, enhance their own services, like cell phones and laptops to transmit entries from home. I would do more than rate shop, and I would go investigate. Everyone says it's a best practice to know your business partner. Go visit your broker, go visit your forwarder, right, and ask them questions. And if they can't respond to you and give you value from that conversation to help complement your supply chain, then you need to stop looking only at the rate sheet. Get a competitive price, but get true value added. But first, you have to know what your needs are. And that can only define the value that a service provider can give you.